new venues,
That's why
which,
Arizona's an option, because
right,
you'll get the warm weather.
I wonder how some owners are going to take that because, many of those stadiums are owned by those teams. They want to have all that stuff. And they're going to have some hurdles with the broadcast rights, but I guess if you don't have fans, you might just take what you can get. But I'm going to be interested to see when things calm down because a story that came out was that the light years ahead Golden State Warriors were one of the teams that was pushing back on not stopping the season. They initially wanted to keep playing, and they were willing to do whatever they could to get a couple more games in. And it does make you wonder what's going to happen when push comes to shove with some of these sports leagues. But at any rate, before going down all that rabbit hole, I do think that the problem with the NBA roster is if one team gets sick in the playoffs, let's take the Rudy Gobert situation. Let's say 4 or 5 guys test positive. What do? You almost can't field. Do you just cancel the series? Do you say, well, you
No,
lost
you
because you
you
got sick?
can't. You can't. And that's why the NBA is being extra cautious about it. It's not possible to crown an NBA champion when you have really good players that would affect series falling ill. It's out of their control.
Right?
You started the playoffs today in that scenario. The Jazz would be one of the better off teams because Donovan Mitchell built up those antibodies where he could fight the virus. This virus, people are still learning about it. But what I've read is that I don't have a chance of getting it again, at least this year, but it could hit me next winter because it's a flu,
Right.
right? But I have enough antibodies and built my immunity up enough where I can go out and be around someone that has the virus. I don't want him or her to breathe on me by any stretch, but I don't have to have that fear because I went through it.
Yeah.
Not everyone else has had that opportunity, and you don't want that opportunity because people are dying, Ben.
Yeah.
So it's such a delicate situation. And I think that the NBA is being extra cautious. Adam Silver is 100% the right person for this job. But at the same time, you mentioned broadcast rights and owners. I know this is hard because money is everything to some people, but greed has to be the least of anyone's worries right now. We need to come together as a society, and they need to put their money aside, and they need to just make the world a better place. And if that's by playing basketball in an empty arena because they make millions of fans around the world happy, so be it. I credit these organizations like, first of all, the owner of the Sixers and the Devils, his name is escaping my mind. I think it's Josh something.
Josh Harris, I believe.
Yeah. Anyway, he was going to start docking employees, and then he ended up retracting a statement. Then you have organizations like the Lakers and the owners of Staples Center basically just docking their top brass or deferring their salaries. So the concession stand workers, the ushers, the security, they continue to get paid because without these events, concerts, games, they're not getting any money. And to me, that's more important than sports. And the NBA community coming together to help their own, not the rich players and coaches, but the guy that sells popcorn, the guy that sells soda, that's coming together. So they need to put their greediness aside. And if this is going to work, money cannot factor in. I get the economy is going to be screwed for so long in this country. It's going to take so long to come back. Sports is going to be one of the first stepping stones to get people to come back.
And one of the things that's going to be really interesting here is that you're talking 450 players in the league, 240 come playoff time. But if you shorten down the playoffs or you do something funny with the first round, so maybe you cut the number of teams that get in, maybe you make the first round series a 3-game series, something like that. Once you get past the first round, you're talking 120 total players that are involved. And that does make it more manageable. It lowers the chances. It lowers some of the variability. And as you shrink down, it does start to get better. The thing that's really risky for the NBA is though that first round to me is where it's really dicey. You have a lot of people. You're going to have all the different staffs of all the different teams and all the different arenas or whatever workers. Only one of them has to get sick. And you're talking about thousands of people out of that first group. Once you get down to like 4 teams, you're talking about a coaching staff of a few people, a medical staff of a few people, 15 players. You're talking about like 50 people probably that are essential. per team. So you're talking, once you're down to even 8 teams, you're probably only talking like 800 people, which is manageable. It's just the thing that I think is going to be really crucial is they have to get it down. I wouldn't be surprised if with Adam Silver at the helm, they do something kind of crazy for the first round, like only 4 teams from each conference get in, something like that, to shorten it up. Because if you do that, you really reduce the risk of contamination. If you put them all in one place and you do basically what baseball is doing in Arizona, you could make that work. I mean, that's theoretically possible, but it's definitely something that I think is going to be tricky. But I mean, ultimately, I am going to say that they find a way to get games this year for this season. What say you?
I don't know about regular season, which would be tough because the race out west is
I mean, playoffs.
competitive.
Yeah, I think regular season's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think the East is solidified. And out of all the teams that had known coronavirus cases, 3 of the 4 playoff teams, you had the Jazz, you had the Pistons who aren't making it, you had the Celtics with Marcus Smart, and you had the 4 Nets players, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are no other known cases that were reported. So you're looking at 3 of the 16 teams that know for a fact players on that team got it. So if anything, a team like the Nets would be at an advantage because you have 4 players in that organization with enough immunity that they don't have to worry about getting the virus again. But then you have the other 9 that tested negative that are still at risk. So it's a fine line, and I'm very interested to see how the league goes about it moving forward. Obviously, the empty arenas is smart, and finding 1, maybe 2 venues smart. But there are still so many logistics to work out that I don't even think I could speculate. I think we're going to have to wait and see what Adam Silver and his team and the Players Association come up with. So you know what our favorite line is on this podcast, right? Especially by you, if the season ended today, right?
Yeah.
So Ben actually wrote up most of the show notes, so kudos to you, my man. I appreciate it. You're our jack of all trades this evening, and always. But we decided that just to get back into some hoops talk, and I think we'll have some evergreen content coming in the next few weeks unless there's actual news. But we're going to act like the season's over. And I know we made our awards predictions at the start of the season, but what Ben and I are going to do are run through the major awards and the All-NBA first team. And now, based on 2/3 of regular season's worth of work, we're going to say who we think should win these awards. So, Ben, you wrote it up. Start us off.
I mean, this one's easy for me. I think it's a no-brainer. MVP, Giannis, he's been incredible. I mean, he's got a team that was on a almost historic pace, been incredible defensively. There's not like a clear second all-star on that team. I mean, I don't even think – I don't have to really explain this one too much. I mean, to me, he's a runaway MVP this year.
So for the sake of argument, I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to go with LeBron James just based on at his age what he's doing with the Lakers being atop the conference with a mediocre at best supporting cast. Just goes to show that Rob Pelinka knew what he was doing pairing Anthony Davis with LeBron James. He was the best possible superstar that fits with LeBron at this stage of his career. So the numbers LeBron's putting up, the supporting cast, because Milwaukee's is so much better and the West being more competitive, I think are stronger cases in LeBron's favor to win the MVP. Even though I do think it's going to be Giannis, there is a very good case to be made for LeBron.
So you don't really believe in LeBron as MVP, though, it sounds like. Like, ultimately, you kind of think it's going to be Giannis. Do you feel like it should be Giannis? I mean, all supporting cast aside, like Danny Green and AD are really good, and Chris Middleton is not as good as AD. I don't think that's a bold, hot take.
Yeah, but if you stack the 2 rosters up on paper, you're taking Milwaukee's. You have star power, right? Because we've discussed this. We said that Chris Middleton's probably one of the most boring 2-time All-Stars we've had in the league in recent years. But you have Brook Lopez has been an All-Star. You have Eric Bledsoe has been a borderline All-Star. Kyle Korver's on the back 9, but he was an All-Star with the Hawks that one year. You have George Hill, who was a very serviceable role player. And then on the Lakers, you have a bunch of journeymen. You know, Danny Green got paid. He's one of the best shooters in the league. But you got guys like Quinn Cook, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Dwight Howard, who resurrected himself by getting into shape. You have JaVale McGee, who on a non-playoff team would be like the modern-day Andre Blatch, and they were on the Wizards together. there's just not as much. Like if LeBron or AD went down, the Lakers would be screwed. If Giannis goes down, I think the Bucks would also be screwed, but they'd be more competitive than the Lakers, which shows LeBron's importance.
I
Both
see
these
where you're
teams have
coming
multiple
from.
All Stars. Yeah,
I
I'm
see
just
where you're coming from, but
we're
I,
back for
I
the first time in a month. We can't just be like LeBron, Giannis,
yeah,
Giannis. No, we're gonna
I'm
fight tooth and nail because I'm corona free and I need to express myself.
all right, all right. So we're I don't think I think you and I are different on most of these. Let's go to the next one, which is most improved player, and I'll let you lead this one off.
So this is a bit of an out of the box pick, but I'm going with Brandon Ingram
I
because
like it.
this was a guy who in Los Angeles showed talent, but I think the pressure of a big market and an organization like the Lakers affected him. You had hopes of stars coming there, and then LeBron does come, and you had Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and Ingram both kind of all walking on eggshells last year, which is why they made that move for Anthony Davis. But
Yep.
pretty much the last 6 weeks of last season, all those guys were playing knowing they were likely not going to be Lakers for very long. And then that change of scenery, going to New Orleans on a young team, Zion's injury actually helping a guy like Brandon Ingram because he was an all-star this year.
For
And
sure.
he went from a player who was going to be a coveted restricted free agent to the Pelicans brass likely not letting him go. And he's going to get a max deal to play alongside Zion Williamson for many years in New Orleans. And I think he deserves that award on that merit.
I love the pick. That's not a name I've heard that much, and I actually really liked it. When I read it in the show notes before, I was like, oh man, I wish I had thought of that. Um, the guys that kind of shot to my mind here when I did this, in full disclosure, I kind of had three guys who kind of came to my mind. One was Jason Tatum. One was Pascal Siakam, who actually just won it last year and is now an all-star and one of the top, I don't know, 20 players in the league. So that's crazy. But the guy that I ultimately went with, and it felt really weird, but I went with Luka Doncic. This is a guy who went from being a very good rookie to an MVP candidate this year, and who carried a Dallas team to really a pretty good record. Um, their underlying statistics are phenomenal, and the third best player on that team is
Dwight Powell.
who knows? And Kristaps has been fine, but like he's not an
Kristaps
all
also
star.
missed some time too.
Yeah, like I mean he has not been an all star. He's not even like real close to all star this year. Like there are a lot of guys I'd take over Kristaps as good as he is. And I mean, Luka has basically carried that team. And you look at comparable teams in the West that are not in the playoffs. I mean, you can make the case that a lot of the teams below them have a lot more talent on the roster. So for me, that's why I went with Luka. I felt like he really went up a level after being incredible as a rookie. So it feels weird. I always kind of like to go away from the top picks because there is a little bit of those guys are kind of supposed to be this good. So improvement is sort of a given. So I do sometimes feel weird, but ultimately I'm going to go with Doncic, I think, here.
So it's not a bad pick because I think he'll get votes, but with that Rookie of the Year award does come expectations. And I think based off of that, he may not have enough to win because when you're the Rookie of the Year and you're putting up those kind of numbers as a rookie, you're expected to morph into an all-star, right? It's a logical next step,
Yep.
Because I know there's only 60 some odd rookies that are in the league in a given year, but Doncic, when he beat out Trey Young for that award, he came into that this season, with a perennial all-star running mate, Porzingis, when he's healthy. But the fact that he carried the Mavericks when Porzingis missed some time in the supporting cast isn't great. We'll get him votes, but I don't think he's a shoo-in to win it.
I agree. It's tough. I found this one a little tough because the best candidates were all guys who were kind of excellent, and then Pascal Siakam was the other guy who kind of jumps to your mind, but he just won it last year. So that one's a tricky one. This one was probably the one I found the hardest, though, which is Coach of the Year. I found Coach of the Year really, really tough. There are just so many guys this year that I felt like I could pick. There were three names right at the top, and you picked one of the names that I didn't go with, but I was right between them. The guy I ended up going with was Nick Nurse. It's still shocking to me. Actually, I'm very happy to say, Jason, uh, all bets were refunded to the